And so I had a little rage incident and just cut the thing off. I Hulk smashed it and cut it off. So what's going on, guys? I'm back with another Mustang upgrade video. This time I decided to tackle the cooling system on the car. If you watched any of my other car videos, Viper, Mustang videos, you know I track the cars and do so pretty regularly. I haven't really had a cooling issue with the Mustang on the track, but I know a lot of guys on the forums and stuff that I follow have. With the rear differential, the transmission. This is again the 10-speed automatic transmission, and they say it's really not that great of a transmission to use for track use, but so far I've probably had about six maybe 7 track days with this car. Haven't had that many transmission problems. I had a little issue with the fluid. If you watch my custom catch can video that I did, I can link that down below. That's really solved that problem. But I was concerned about the transmission temperature in this car, and that's what prompted me to do a full cooling upgrade from Mishimoto. So I've got their custom oil cooler situation, their transmission oil cooler upgrade, and their performance radiator upgrade. So a lot of people, even Mishimoto, says that you cannot run their transmission cooler in this car. They stop it, I believe, at 2017. So I think it's like 2015 to 2017. This is a 2019 Mustang GT Premium. It's not the Performance Pack, but that doesn't matter. They said that it will not fit in the front. Well, it will. There's no problem whatsoever. I'll show you in the install video here shortly. There's no issue whatsoever with it fitting in here. I emailed the tech support people there, and they said it will not fit. There's not enough space. There's a difference in the front end design. I thought that was a load of crap, but I needed a solution for my transmission temperature issues and was concerned with it getting too high on the track. So I went for it anyway, and I said, well, worst case scenario, it doesn't fit. Maybe I can send it back, sell it to somebody else online, something like that. But worked perfect, no issues whatsoever. It was a little intimidating. This car is still pretty new. I don't have many miles on it. I think it had about 6,000 miles on it when I ripped it all apart. It only has about 7,300 miles on it right now. So still, I don't drive it very much. It sits in the garage a lot. So it was intimidating to rip a almost brand new car apart and tear all of that stuff out the front end. Honestly, once I got to it, it wasn't that bad. I was surprised at how well everything went back together. If you're slightly mechanically inclined, I don't think it would be an issue. So I did the Mishimoto, and I'll leave links down below to all the products that I used if you're interested to see exactly what it was. But I used their performance radiator. I've got my little cheat sheet here with my numbers on it because I can't remember anything. So they claim it's 129% capacity increase over the stock GT. So and the other number they give is it's 77% capacity over the performance pack cars and the GT350s. So the cooling in this car now is better than a GT350. And now I don't think, I don't pretend that I'll hit GT500 marks anytime soon with this car. That's not the intent. The intent is just to have take what I have, make it a little bit better, make it run good, and not have to come off the track early because of rising temperatures. So the transmission oil cooler, they say, is a 180% increase over the stock 6-row transmission cooler. So a gigantic increase in cooling capacity over that. And the other thing, of course, was the dedicated oil cooler. This car didn't have that. It feeds off of the coolant system, which I didn't really care for that idea. Again, that might be the norm on a ton of different cars, but it's causing your engine coolant, to work harder to also cool the oil. And if there is a failure in that, it could potentially suck coolant into the oil system, and that would be a nightmare. And so ripped all of that off. You'll see in the install video here in a second. Ripped all of that out, put a dedicated oil cooler in there. It looks great. It's in the front radiator support. It looks like I have an intercooler for a supercharger. Maybe one day, hopefully one day, we'll cross that road later. But looks great, looks really aggressive up there. The temperatures in the car are fantastic now. You'll see again the results at the end. The cylinder head temperature has come down and stayed down. Even track use, it would go up I say pretty high. It would go up high enough where, you know, I would watch it more than I really would want to, and would consider coming in and letting the car cool down. Transmission temperature, again, that thing has a thermostat in it that doesn't open until it hits 190 degrees. So there is no cooling happening until that thing gets up to normal operating temperature. And then with the small stock transmission cooler, it's almost too late to catch it and be able to bring it back down. Once it hits that and the thermostat opens, it's heating up so fast that the stock cooler has a hard time bringing it back down to normal temperatures. Now, I talked to some people at Ford Performance, and they said anything under 230 and under, they don't have any concern about it. It's when it starts creeping up over 230 that they claim that they would be concerned about it. So I did have a few track days where it got up over 230, and that's what prompted this whole upgrade. And so I wanted to make sure that the car lasted a long time. I had great cooling capacity. I wasn't overheating and tearing anything up, damaging any of the parts. Now, again, you'll see in the results at the end, I've got some track footage where I come off the track. Transmission is great temperature-wise. It's doing what it's supposed to. The cylinder heads have come down, stayed down, and I can stay out there a full session and no problems whatsoever, no concerns. So again, it was well worth the time and effort to take this all apart and replace it. Pretty happy with it. The other part, I don't know if I mentioned in the install video, is I did buy the Reische. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'll put a link to it too, from Lethal Performance. It's the 170 degree performance thermostat. And then again, I got my tuner to custom tune to turn the fans on at 170, so it could go ahead and keep the car cooler once it got up to operating temperature, and it just keeps everything much cooler. It operates great. I've had it probably back on the track 3 times after the upgrade, and it's been dead on perfect. I've been really thrilled with it, really pleased how it turned out. And it wasn't a bad install. It took the better part of a weekend, not getting in a rush, tearing everything apart, making sure it was all back together. And then I did fill it up with Mishimoto's liquid chill coolant, and I forget, they have a couple of different brands, and I'll look back and leave the link to that too. But I used their special coolant to fill it back up, and again, cars run fantastic. So if you find this video interesting, want to follow along with other Mustang content and other stuff that I do, you know, make sure you subscribe. If you got any questions or comments about the parts or install or anything at all with it, you know, leave me a comment below, and I'll be sure to try to answer it the best I can. I appreciate you guys watching and follow along with all the upgrades. And I've got a lot of suspension mods that I've got coming from Steeda next that I plan to install before the next track day. So again, if you're interested in seeing some of that type stuff or just car stuff in general, just make sure you subscribe, and I appreciate you following along. Have a good one. All right, so here's where we are so far. We got the front bumper off. We've got the belly pan shield, whatever you call that thing, off. The radiator support cover off. Here's the front of the car. Again, this is the GT Premium. It is not the Performance Pack car. So from my understanding, you get these active grille shutter pieces of crap for miles per gallon and, you know, fuel rating junk from the government. All of this will come off. That's step 2, phase 2. About to take these off. And then we'll have to take the coolant overflow tank off, drain it, air intake tube, all of this stuff off, air box out the way. because we need to take the radiator core out, the transmission, the stock transmission cooler out. We're replacing all of that, and then the oil cooler, the dedicated oil cooler, will mount right here in the front, and that's why you have to take all of this mess out. So we are removing a little bit of weight off the car, not a ton, it's just plastic, and of course we're replacing it with metal, so you know, probably even out a little bit, probably be adding a little bit of weight to the car, but I think the cooling performance and benefits will far outweigh the extra weight we add to the front end. But that's where we are so far, and they keep pressing on. Alright, active grille shutters are removed. It's the front of the car now. Much more open. Get a lot more airflow through there. Wasn't bad at all. There's 4 what are they? 8mm bolts that hold it in. There's 2 in the main crash bar. There's 2 in the bottom here. And then there's these 2 pop connectors that are in the upper support here and here. So they come out. And then there's the plug that runs along the back of the crash bar here that you have to unplug in order to get it out. And on the grille shutters themselves, there is a piece that actually wraps around that crash bar and bolts together. And so you have to unbolt it in order to get the whole piece out. And then the motor that runs the thing is up in here. So what I understand, in order to not throw a check engine light, you have to take this motor out, plug it back in, and then just duct tape it, zip tie it, electrical tape it, whatever, so the car still sees the motor being there. Now, if you don't care about that type of thing, that's up to you. You can just take this sensor plug back up and go on about your business. But that's it. It's all taken off of the car now. Alright, so here we are at the next step of the phase in the project. I've got the coolant overflow tank out. That wasn't bad to do at all. I've got the fans out. There was a bolt right here at the top. One bolt here at the top. They slide in this little tab here and here. And then the plug I have out of the way over here on the side, right here. And you simply unplug it and the whole thing slides out. Of course, I've already taken the engine cover off, air intake box off. I just left the adapter, everything there, and the box comes out, one bolt, everything slides out. So all of that's taken loose. I've taken all the hoses loose. There's the 2 that go to the existing oil cooler from the radiator hose. So as you can see, here's the first one, and this one decided it was going to be a pain in the butt, and so I had a little rage incident and just cut the thing off. So that's alright. These 2 things are supposed to mash in and release, and I don't know if it was the angle that it was on or what, but this one was stuck and would not come loose. And so I just said to heck with it. I was replacing it all anyway, and so I Hulk smashed it and cut it off. So all of that's out of the way now. So the next step is to loosen the top of the radiator stays. Take them out. We got one there, and then this whole stack will be able to tilt backwards. I'll be able to take the existing radiator out, so that will come out. Then I'll be able to get to this trans cooler that's in there, the stock one, and we're gonna replace that with the new one. I'll show you that, and we're gonna put the new radiator in, and then once all of that's done, we can start with the oil cooler that's going to mount in the front. So the biggest challenge right this second is I have a special tool to snap these transmission lines apart for the new cooler. I'm hoping that goes well. We shall see. And then I also have the Performance 170 degree thermostat that we're about to pop this loose and replace that. So we'll have that out of the way, and then we'll see how it goes from there. I'll update you in a little while. Alright, so we've got the radiator loose from the supports. So everything will shift back. It's out of the little rubber grommets at the bottom. The AC condenser comes out pretty easy. There's a tab here in the front. There's one in the bottom. It's set for this side because this tab, the AC lines are in the way, so you have to kind of wiggle it loose. But here is the stock transmission cooler. It's not very big at all. It goes into this side, and then there's one bolt that we have to take loose right here. And then we've got to pop the transmission lines loose right here. Okay, so the stock transmission cooler is out of the car. You can look how dainty that thing looks compared to the new Mishimoto Performance transmission cooler. Now, there is talk, and I've read a lot of forum posts, that this will not fit 2018 and up Mustang GT. It's only for like the 15s through 17s. So I took a gamble because I did see one guy on YouTube that claimed he had it in his 19. This is a 2019 GT Premium, not Performance pack again. And so took a gamble and ordered it anyway because Mishimoto customer support said that there was a front end change on the vehicle and it wouldn't fit. Well, I knew the bumper and everything was different, but I couldn't imagine them redesigning everything from the crash bar back with the cooling stack and everything else just for a different front end. So this thing is quite a bit bigger. It does, when you stack it up against the existing radiator, line up perfectly with the bolt holes and the support on the side. So a little tip about taking the transmission lines loose. I actually bought the kit for transmission line removal. It's supposed to snap on there and pop the little spring clip right out. It didn't. Maybe I just don't know how to use it right, but I used a tiny little flathead screwdriver, and you can go right down on the transmission line and pop that little retaining clip out. That's free. No problem whatsoever. It was actually really easy to do. So everything's drained, and start putting all the pieces back together. Alright, so this step is complete. We've got the Mishimoto Performance trans cooler. It fit perfect. Now, obviously we don't have it in the car yet, so there's still a possibility that it won't fit. I don't know, you know, what they were talking about on the website and all that, but it slid right into the groove here. Let me adjust this rubber seal. Well, I got to push that back in a little bit. There we go. Slid right in, bolted right up perfect. We've got our lines installed. Everything looks good. And so yeah, now the next step is we've got our rubber grommets for the feet to set back down in here. And we're going to slide it back in and try to get our AC condenser lined back up with it. And we'll be good to go to start hooking things back up. Okay, time for the next update. We actually have our new Mishimoto Performance radiator installed. It fit perfect. And we have our new Mishimoto transmission cooler installed. It worked out perfect. And the AC condenser is back in. So everything, transmission lines hooked back up. It worked out fine. There was one issue, well actually two small issues. One of the holders on the new radiator was pinched at the top, so I had to spread it out a little bit to get this tab to slide down in. Not a big deal, that was easy to do. The bigger issue, grab a light, is right here. So I'm concerned about this AC line hitting the two transmission. I'm going to try to see if I can take this off possibly and route behind it, and I think that will solve the problem. Let the AC condenser go in the tab like it's supposed to, and this won't be touching, but I got to check and see if that's something. But it's in there and it fit, works fine, so we'll start putting things back together. Alright, so it's the next day. We're taking our time with everything, making sure we do it the right way, and everything's back together as far as the radiator, transcooler's concerned. The stays are back in. So while I had everything torn apart, I thought it'd be a good idea to go ahead and do everything I could for the cooling, and so I purchased the oil cooler kit, dedicated oil cooler kit, and this plate installs in there, and so you have to lean the entire cooling stack back in order to get this little piece that bends up and seals against the radiator in. So you had to take all this apart anyway in order to get that plate in. So I took that, I installed that while everything was apart, and then mounted the oil cooler, those two bolts on the top, and it's ready to go. Mishimoto really makes some pretty good kits in my opinion. They've got nice stainless braided hardware, nice packaged, everything comes shipped, I mean just great. This is pretty cool. New sandwich plate we'll have to replace on the car, and all the hardware, new hoses, everything ready to go. So I got to go get a 14mm Allen tool to get the stock oil cooler off the car, and a 1-inch open end wrench. I didn't have that either. My kit only went up to 5/8, so I gotta go get that. And then you have to have a 1 1/16 socket for this to fit, to put it back on the car. And of course mine taps out at 1 inch, so I've got to go get that as well, and then we can put the new oil cooler on the car, or the sandwich plate, excuse me, run the lines, and then that will be everything. We can start putting all the hoses back together. I wanted to leave everything apart since I've got to get right down here to take this oil cooler, or so this is the coolant based oil cooler, and those two lines, so all that'll come off, and then we'll put the new one on, and then we can start buttoning everything back up. Alright, so we are done with the oil cooler install. We've got our lines installed, this side, this side. We've got them snaked down by the air conditioner condenser, around the side by the new radiator. Come over the frame where the old coolant based lines were, and we've got our new sandwich plate here. You'll need a couple of special tools. Well, I say special, just stuff that's not in a normal kit. You need a larger 1-inch open end wrench. You need, oh, here it is. You need a 14mm Allen wrench, socket, something. And you need a 1 1/16 socket to sit down on the new bolt that's provided in the kit. And something to be wary of, this is the bolt that held the coolant based part on the engine block, and it is rounded on the inside, and so the socket I had was almost not long enough to go down in there. It just did have about a 16th or 18th that it went down in there and caught. So just be careful of that. But everything is in. There's the new sandwich plate installed and ready to go with the new oil filter. So now it's time to install the new coolant hose that came in the kit. Connect that to the thermostat housing and radiator, and then we can start putting everything back together in the car. The fans, the coolant reservoir, all the hoses, air box, and we'll be ready for the first start. Alright, so here we are. Everything's back together. I hope I didn't skip too many steps, but I got the coolant flushed out and refilled. Ran with the heater on for a while. I swapped out, of course, the thermostat, let everything bleed back out of the system, and refilled. Everything's put back together. What I did in the front is I actually took my active grille shutter and hacked it apart so it would help continue to divert air at the bottom straight into the coolant stack, so the AC condenser and everything. So, you know, most people just remove it completely. What I did was I took the motor out and zip tied it to the wiring harness behind the crash bar, and then you can see the new oil cooler line there and the other one there, and then they snake around the corner here. I did have one small oil leak from the sandwich plate. I'll put a picture in right here so you can see what I was talking about. There is two small hex bolts on the side, Allen bolts, hex bolts, that you can hook other aftermarket pressure sending units and other things to. One of mine, I don't know if it was just loose or what, but it was weeping slightly from that hole. It wasn't a big leak, but obviously didn't want any leak whatsoever. So took that and tightened it up, and so far no leaks from anywhere. But yeah, so I actually cut the top part of the active grille shutter off because obviously it can't go back with the new oil cooler there, and bolted the bottom half back up. Took that motor out, like I said, the fins out, the shutters, took all of that back out and mounted this in so it'll continue to help direct air straight into the condenser. So next step is to well, I also reloaded the custom tune in there, since we did put a 170 degree thermostat in versus the stock 180. It doesn't do you much good unless you're moving if you don't turn the fans on earlier. So fans have now been tuned to come on at 170. All that's working great. We'll do some road tests to see about the levels, the different temperatures of all the different pieces, see how it goes. So yeah, next step is to put the bumper back on and start buttoning everything back up and take it for a test drive. So I just got off the track, and with all my cooling mods on an 82 degree day, just ran a total of 8 laps, 12 minutes on the track. It's come down already. It was at 212 cylinder head. It's at 204 for my cylinder head temperature, and my transmission is at 200. So I would say that the cooling mods were definitely a success. No issues whatsoever. The highest I've seen the transmission get is 230, and I think it's just because it takes a minute for it to open up, and then it came right back down to 210, and right now it's at 200, and you see it's already inching below the 200 mark. So yeah, transmission cooler was spot on, perfect, and even the bigger radiator and the oil cooler has helped. It's already down to 197 again on an 82 degree day, and just ran about a 15-minute session on the track, 130 plus miles an hour, and about 8 laps. So now that you've seen the results from the track day, again, everything worked out perfect. Very happy with it, how it all came together. It wasn't a bad install. Definitely worth the time and money. It was a little pricey for all the different parts. Not super crazy. You could probably total it all up off the links of the individual parts. Nothing terrible. Well worth it for peace of mind and not be frustrated on a track day that you happen to go pay for, and you're out there the entire day, and it's wasted, and you can't run the car more than 5-10 minutes. I've seen people say that they can't get more than a couple of laps out of it once it gets up to temperature, especially again with the 10-speed automatic. That seems to be the issue with this transmission cooler. And so after all the upgrades, the car has run flawless. I've been real thrilled with it, and so definitely worth the time and money. And if you're interested in something like that, I would say go for it, because it has transformed the cooling of this car, and I don't even have to think about it anymore. So again, give it a thumbs up if you found any of it interesting. If not, I appreciate you watching it anyway, and hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.